box or the chat box on the Zoom platform. If you're listening to us live on Facebook or on LinkedIn, we've now got our LinkedIn video license since you were last with us, James. So we're on both platforms. And so it's great if you're listening to us on those platforms. Please also do comment. Place your questions. If you're back for back for a second time, give us maybe a bit of love. If you're here for the first time, please like, comment, and share. And if you're listening to us on a recording, maybe on YouTube or later on LinkedIn, please also still continue to put any questions, because we will continue to reach out to you after this hour is up. But purpose, we are here to discuss and talk and explore the purpose of our business and the purpose in ourselves. But James, it's great. This is your bread and butter. You're talking purpose every single day to clients and prospects, aren't you?
This is, and I could do it all afternoon. So I'm gonna do my best to keep my chat to kind of 20-25 minutes, so I can take questions. But I started my business at the start of 2019 to inspire more people to discover purpose so they could love work and lead more fulfilling lives. And I've been helping a range of organizations over that time get in touch with this kind of authentic reason for their business to exist that motivates and attracts their team members and just makes running their business a little easier. And I think it's going to be something that's really important in the next decade, and I'm really privileged and excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, no, really excited to hear what you've got to say. And one of the first questions, James, I always ask any prospect, and certainly when they turn into a client, when they work with Action Coach, is why did you set the business up? What was the reason? What are you trying to achieve? And I think that's something that in the trials and storms of life that we've certainly experienced in 2020, we can sometimes sort of become quite detached from the purpose in which we've set our business up. We're dealing with very much the here and now, and this year has been very much like that for all of us, hasn't it? But it's often it is important to make sure we reflect back on what our purpose is and why we're trying to achieve what we are, and where we want to go.
That's right. And this is the third time I've been a guest on a Lunch and Learn. So thank you for having me back. And in the previous sessions, I talked about what is purpose and why it's important. I'll cover that in brief today so that nobody's kind of wondering what we're talking about. But in the second session, I presented some results from a government survey that showed about half of entrepreneurs, when they were surveyed, said the reason for starting their business was because they realized they could make some money, which is great. But when COVID takes that away, what is your motivation to get up and keep on fighting the good fight? You need to have something a lot more than that, just that opportunity that exists. And that's really what I want to help people tap into, is that, that impact they're making on the world just by their business existing. And that's what we'll cover a bit today.
And I often think of when I talk to you, James, and think back to an interview I had for a job many years ago. And they said, when you're no longer with us, what will it say on your gravestone? And I used a quote very similar to this. Life is made of 2 dates and a dash. Make the most of the dash. And it's understanding the impact we can have and the purpose that we are here for, and making the most of that opportunity, every opportunity we've got, so that it's leading towards that greater ambition, that greater vision. And so, for me, it really is important to know what our purpose is, and to know why we're doing what we're doing and what drives and motivates us every single day. Because without a clear understanding of that, why do we carry on doing what we're doing? It's really important to be connected with our purpose and know our why, is another way of phrasing it. But James, I know you've got some slides you want to share with us today. So I'll stop sharing my screen and let you take over the technology. And
thank you very much. And I will share that now. So Steve, can you see my screen?
I absolutely can. Yes.
It's my wonderful title, Purpose 2020, because I'm going to give you an overview of what purpose is and why it matters. But I'm really going to skim through that, because you can go back to the Action Coach channel and watch the previous webinars where I've discussed that in depth. I really want to talk about the state of purpose at the end of this year, after the most tumultuous year in my lifetime, and see where we are and what's the prospects for the year ahead, 2021, and for the decade ahead. And I'm really going to go in depth into one area that I think will really be able to help you. So I'm going to give you that quick reminder: what is purpose, why is it important, and what are we aiming for? And then I'm going to do a quick review of the year to bring you up to speed with the topics that are going on in big businesses and in the purpose kind of discovery and activation circles. What are people talking about, and has this been a good year for purpose? In the main, I think yes. And then I'm going to go into a bit of depth on John Lewis Partnership, who just unveiled their new or refreshed purpose this year, because it's interesting, but also there are lots of lessons that their exercise can tell us about how to make sure purpose is found and lives in our business. And as I say, hoping to talk for 20-25 minutes and then take questions. But Stephen, if anything occurs to you or anything comes up live, please feel free to stop me. And if you're watching, please do ask questions, because the debate will make this this talk unique and special to you. So please do ask anything you want to know.
Brilliant. Thanks, James.
That sounded good. Great. So a reminder, what is purpose? So lots of people talk about purpose. And Stephen's already referenced this in kind of the language of Simon Sinek, in terms of purpose is our why. It's not what we do, it's not how we do it, but it's why we do it. And purpose is something that is difficult to define, but I define it here using these 4 A's: authenticity, aspiration, action, and advancement. I define it here so that we can understand it and do something with it. Because for most business owners, just knowing it's the reason I get up in the morning isn't quite enough. I mean, the reason why you get up in the morning might be to provide for your family. Or the reason why your business exists might be, as I said, because you found an opportunity that can make money, or you wanted to be your own boss. And these are great and they motivate you, but they don't do the job of purpose to motivate everyone else and get people interested and caring in your business. So what you need is a purpose that's got these 4 A's. It's authentically lived throughout every area of your business. It's aspirational. It relates to something big and important. It's a call to action. Something has to happen as a result of it, and it advances others. There's a benefit to people outside of your organization if you make progress on that purpose. Authenticity, because without authenticity, it's just a marketing slogan and it doesn't do anybody any good. Aspiration, because without aspiration, it's a goal. Now, goals are important and can motivate you in the short term, but aren't going to motivate you and bring other people to you in the long term. Action, because purpose without action is just a daydream. And advancing others, because purpose without advancing others isn't a purpose. Actually, it's megalomania. So these are the 4 things that you need. And authenticity is something we're going to come back to in a lot more detail. So I'm not going to kind of talk about it now. But if you have a purpose statement that does these 4 things, fulfills these 4 A's, then you have something that can make a big difference to your business. What is that difference? Now, you've seen headlines, or you can see headlines everywhere from Harvard Business Review to the Financial Times, actually to lots of different trade magazines in 2020, saying purpose leads to profit. And that's not strictly true. It's not as simple as saying, okay, well, I've defined this purpose and now I'm going to be profitable. Purpose works because it begins a cycle. That cycle is it attracts people to your business, like-minded people. And this is becoming more important over time. In the Deloitte Millennial Survey, they quoted that 79% of millennials will turn down a job because of the company's stance on social or environmental issues. And this is,
James, I was reading a book, sorry, just interrupt. I was reading a book not that long ago called The Purpose Revolution. I don't know if you've come across it. John Izzo, really good book. And it talks about that very point about how millennials are looking for more than just a pay packet at the end of the month in their job. You know, they really want to align their own visions and values with the organization they're working with more than ever before. Yeah.
And it's something that, I mean, millennial is a bit of a maligned term. I mean, I am almost young enough to be a millennial. I'm just a couple of years out. But, you know, there are people who were born in 1979 like me who really care about that as well. It's not just for millennials. And we'll talk about that a bit more when we talk about John Lewis, actually. But there's also evidence that people are several times more likely to be loyal to an organization where they can feel a clear and meaningful purpose. So it attracts people and it keeps them in your organization. Then it aligns their behavior. It helps people point in the same direction. And again, studies have shown that people are up to 40% more engaged in organizations that have a clear and meaningful purpose. So you've attracted the right people to your organization and pointed them in the right way. It then guides their behavior day to day. And this is where I think it's really important, not just for people that are running teams, but for solopreneurs as well, and startup entrepreneurs, because when you start a business, you have 100 things you could try. Doesn't mean you should try all of them. You need to know what decisions to make and what decisions not to make. And purpose helps guide that decision making day to day, to the point that organizations that have a clear defined purpose are more likely to successfully launch new products into new markets. But also people who have that sense of purpose in corporate jobs perform significantly better in performance reviews than people without that clear sense of purpose. And that's because they're better able to determine what decisions to make and when to deploy their unique skills. So you attract the right people, point them in the same direction, and guide what they do day to day. You've got a pretty winning formula. But then also Adam Grant, who I'm sure some of you will have listened to his podcast or read his books, in some of his academic research, he found that when people can see that a thing that they're working on has value in and of itself, they're more resilient and they're more productive. So it motivates people as well, up to 30% more productive, some studies have found. And it's this that leads to profit. Purpose attracts people to your organization, aligns them, guides them, and motivates them. And this is where having that clear purpose can work for you as well as an individual, because if you're struggling through the hardest year in history, with holding on to the thing that I'm doing this because I care for my family and I saw an opportunity to make money, it can be difficult to lose sight of that. But if you're doing it because I know that just by existing, this business is transforming the recruitment industry so it's more human and empathetic, or I'm launching this product, it's going to make people share better together and build society, but build communities, it has a different emotional impact on you and makes you more resilient. And then a cycle forms. So people who are motivated are more likely to attract like-minded people, and a cycle forms. And it doesn't just work amongst your team, but it also works amongst customers, your early adopters, your first clients, your mainstream customers. When they can see your passion and feel like they're part of a movement, much more likely to get involved in this as well and attract other people. And it's this cycle that led Raj Sisodia to find that firms of endearment, as he called them, grow significantly faster over the long term, and other research has shown they're more likely to be profitable in the short term. So this is why you as a business owner need purpose, because it will make your business more successful, more likely to be profitable, more likely to enter new markets, more likely to make the right innovation decisions, and so on.
I know last time we were together, James, you gave some great examples of how real clear purpose has helped, build brands quicker, more effectively, and some great stories of organisations that have got really clear purpose sitting, aligned and developed within the organisation. So I would recommend people go back to our previous video. I know we haven't got time to unpack all of that today, but would recommend people go back to our previous Lunch and Learn and just have another look at that if they need to.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And if you do go back to the one that we did together in the summer, you'll also see this diagram, which I think is absolutely key. So the key to living your purpose, and this is where we talk about authenticity, is having congruence between what you intend, what your purpose is, how you act, and in particular in 5 or 6 key areas. What do you measure in your business? How do you know that you're making progress against your purpose? And how do you incentivize people? There was a good study today saying, an article today saying Deutsche Bank are going to incentivize their executives on whether or not their sustainability targets are met. So it's not going to just be about financial performance anymore, but now the sustainability element is being brought into that as well. If you are trying to build people's self-esteem, how do you measure that and reward people for it? How do you treat your customers? How do you treat your people, your customer experience and your human experience? Those are the day-to-day proof of your purpose. And you have to make sure that your purpose is absolutely embedded in those, and you can see a line through them. What products and services do you offer? How do you govern your business? How transparent are you? How do you treat stakeholders and community? How do you pick your strategy? All these kind of things have to be in line with your purpose. Otherwise, it just becomes another marketing slogan. And then finally, once you've got all that in place, then you can start talking about your purpose, the stories that you tell, the proposition that you put forward, the boasting that you do in terms of the benefit that you're delivering. Once you've got all that other stuff in place, then you can build your communications on top of it. And this is really the key to living purpose, in my opinion. So if you're interested in any of that, you can do a deep dive in either the previous 2 sessions that I've done with Action Coach. Stephen, or I'm sure you can send details around of where they are, or they're on the Action Coach.
Absolutely, yes, we'll get those circulated.
But purpose is not a new thing. So like Simon Sinek launched Start With Why, his book, in 2009. Brand purpose has been a big thing in the communications world for years and years. What do we find in 2020? What is the state of this debate, and what does it mean for us? Now, this has been a challenging year for lots of people, but it's also been a challenging year for the notion of purpose for 2 main reasons. First is the Business Roundtable statement of 2019, and the second is the Black Lives Matter movement, and I'll go into those in a bit more detail. So in 2019, the Business Roundtable, which is like the membership organization that represents business in America, had almost 500 CEOs signing up to a letter saying that the purpose of business, they're going to change their definition of what business is. And they changed that definition subtly but importantly to say no longer is a business a mechanism for making money for shareholders, bringing benefit to its owners, but they changed the word shareholders to stakeholders. So the definition of a corporation in America, as signed up to by some of the biggest companies in the world, is now an organization that pursues some commercial activity for the benefit of its stakeholders, i.e. for society. And this was widely heralded in 2019 as a massive breakthrough for purpose. After 10 years of talking about it, finally the CEOs, the biggest leaders in the world, get it. And I think the fact that these big companies are saying business is a way of distributing wealth and making society better for all is really important for you as a business owner and for me as a business owner. We need to be aware of this trend and know what part our business plays in society. However, the reason that this was a step back in 2020 is because the Wall Street Journal did some analysis amongst the companies whose CEOs signed this letter in 2019 and found that under half of the CEOs could identify a single action that their business had taken in order to reflect this. So unfortunately, this exercise in 2019 was a bit more of a PR exercise than an actual commitment. And when you went even deeper, actually only a handful of those CEOs had even raised it at a board meeting. So if you go back to the minutes of the board meetings of these companies, it hadn't even been discussed with the board. Now, a lot of these companies are based...
that word of congruence, doesn't it, James?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of these companies are based in Delaware, where it is the legal requirement of the board members to ensure that the CEO runs the company for as much profit as possible. Like, it is literally against the law for some of these CEOs to sign up to this letter. And I think it's a big indication that people still see purpose as a communications issue. Just saying it is enough, but it's not. You absolutely have to act in line with it. And that doesn't mean you have to be a social enterprise. It doesn't mean you have to give all your money away to charity. What it means is you have to act responsibly and know what benefit you're delivering to society. And should you get rewarded for it, do it brilliantly and make profit, fine. You're absolutely entitled to that. But you need to know what that difference that you are intending to make is. So that was one step back. The second step back is not the Black Lives Matter movement per se or racial equality. Clearly, these are valuable things, but it's the hypocrisy around the Black Lives Matter movement. Brands who are called out on social media, such as L'Oreal, decided to put the black square on Instagram and go quiet for the day, but their entire board and leadership team doesn't have one person of color on it. And there's no commitment in that organization in place to change that. All of these organizations that were very happy to talk a good game around, yes, Black Lives Matter, but actually weren't willing to put their money where their mouth was and make a difference. And it was seen as more virtue signaling, woke washing. And this type of thing really does undermine the notion that that these things matter and can improve a business's performance. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. I think a great example is Ben and Jerry's. Now, you might have seen the furore in the summer when they were posting positive messages about people trying to cross the channel and allowing people to enter the country and become settled. Like, Ben and Jerry's has been working with racial equality groups for 8 years and funding racial equality charities for 8 years before this summer, they finally said something about Black Lives Matter. Like, they have walked the walk for 8 years before they started trying to make the issue, promote the issue or make it aware in the marketplace, in the same way that actually they've worked with migration asylum seeking charity for 6 years before they made any pronouncements this summer. This is not virtue signaling for them, but for most companies, unfortunately, they see the latest thing that matters and want to have an opinion on it, and it just looks like they're saying what they think they should say. And these two things in particular, I think, have been really negative steps for purpose this year.
Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think of examples now, but we have had similar in previous years, haven't we, where sort of the issue of the moment becomes apparent, and many organisations jump on the bandwagon, dare I say.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to talk shortly about pride, and a good example is the Marks and Spencer LGBT sandwich rather than a BLT. They put guacamole in it and called it the LGBT sandwich rather than the BLT sandwich, and that was just window dressing, really. And yeah, I'll say why in a second. But there have been big steps forward, actually. And some of this might sound a bit strange, but I follow the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is, it's a survey run by a PR company. So it's not scientific, it's not a census or something, but it does give us a good read of how people are feeling around the world. And this year, trust became the second most important thing for consumers when they were choosing a brand. Above product attributes, above value for money, trust, that I can trust the brand that I'm buying for, matters. And the reason it mattered was because people suddenly could see businesses contributing positively to the COVID efforts. They wanted to see businesses making a difference in their societies. And actually, we were in this really weird scenario where we don't have great contact with the outside world, with each other. And we're relying on these brands a lot more than we ever did before to keep us going in terms of providing us with entertainment, providing us with the stuff we need. And in order to do that, because we're doing everything online now, we're giving up more data than ever before. So we need to trust that they're going to treat that data well. They're going to serve us properly. And imagine if you were in a position where you lost your job and or you're trying to get a business off the ground, which is something a lot of people listening will understand. You need these brands to deliver. So you need to trust them when you're using them. And that trust is really kind of something that came to the fore in 2020, and I think will remain in the fore. And it means that brands that have that clear sense of what benefit they bring to society and have already been acting in line with it and can show that they're acting in line with it can use that as a shortcut to build trust very easily. And that's a really important thing for the purpose, the idea of purpose. The second is related to that, which is community. Sorry, Stephen, you wanted to ask? Go on.
No, I was just thinking, reflecting on what you were saying, and many more people, all of us that are buying online, dealing, working online. You and I have never met. There's trust between us. But we have to trust trust the organizations, trust reviews. We can't go and see things and meet people face to face. There has to be that trust there. But as easy as it is to build, to create that trust, it's far easier to lose it. I'm sure you may well be touching on that in a moment. But it is such an important factor. And I was only talking yesterday to clients about testimonials and the importance of transparent, authentic testimonials. Just don't just go to all your clients and your best clients and get them to say how good you are, but also where you've had challenges. We need to be authentic about the challenges we've had and build that trust up. It's earned. Right. It needs to be earned.
Absolutely right. I think customer testimonials, like I'm going to use this phrase later, so apologies for trailing it now, but if you go and see a comedian, they don't come on stage and tell you they're funny. They tell you a joke. Like, you need to give people evidence that you are running a business that they can trust and they can invest in. And the simplest way to do that is to show that other people trust you and that you've delivered for them. Like, testimonials are absolutely vital.
We have to help our clients and our potential customers get over the fear of buying from us, and that's the trust we provide from other people. We're lending our trust to others when we're reviewing a product, that they will go and buy that same product.
Exactly. And you're right, it's borrowed, not given. Community is more important in 2020, which also plays towards the notion of a business, that can authentically show that it's contributing to its community or community at large, or some community in the world, gives them an advantage over others. And that community feeling has come from, again, feelings of being isolated or trapped in your community, wanting to contribute to it. And there was a really interesting study earlier in the year showing 40% of people, all other things being equal, would like to give up their jobs to do something with more meaning, that has a greater contribution to their society. You are helping, by having a purpose, you are helping people see a link between the efforts that they make day to day and a benefit in community or in society, and you are doing them a favor because they want it and they need it, and it makes their lives better. It also benefits you because it builds the trust.
And I have to say, with Action Coach ourselves here in Birmingham, we've seen the building of a business community more this year than ever before. Businesses coming together to support each other, to help each other through this challenging year that we've had. I think community is so important, and it has been this year.
Yeah, and this is a personal opinion. It's nothing to do with purpose, but the networks that you build, if you act in good faith and help other people, then you get it back. It's definitely something that can be learned from that.
Yeah.
In terms of ESG, so ESG standing for environmental, social, and governance. People are no longer solely reliant on what financial return they're going to make on an investment in order to decide to do it. It's been shown this year, a fantastic meta study showed that organizations that do a really good job of managing their environmental impact, their social impact, and governing their business in a transparent, open, positive way, they have a lower cost of capital. They find it easier to access money because people are more willing to lend to them. They have better operational performance. They tend to be more efficient, and that comes from a range of areas, but part of it is kind of that cycle that we showed earlier. And they perform better financially. So actually, organizations, investors that are investing based on how organizations are interacting with a wide group of stakeholders are actually doing better financially than those who are just investing on what they think is a good financial bet. And that's a really positive step, because it means big organizations looking for big funding have to take into account these other things. It means purpose is more at the heart of what they're doing. And a good example of this is Oatly. I don't know if you know the brand Oatly, Stephen. It's kind of the oat milk, the milk substitute brand.
It's not one I'm familiar with, actually. No.
Well, they are, as you would imagine, a vegan, cruelty-free, quite upmarket product, appealing to a range of hipsters and others. Oatly has grown massively and needed to get new funding. And amongst the people that were funding Oatly were, I'm going to get their names wrong, but I think Natalie Portman took a big share. I think Venus Williams invested, or Serena Williams. I think Oprah Winfrey may have invested in them. Right on liberal media profile people were investing in Oatly. But at the same time, Oatly took a significant amount of money from a business called Blackstone, which is an traditional ultra-conservative investor whose CEO is a very prominent Donald Trump supporter. And it was a bit of a thing. It was one of social media's highest profile cancellations in 2020, where you got lots of people putting on Instagram, this is my recipe for homemade oat milk. I'm not giving Oatly £2.80 a week anymore, and funding Donald Trump. Lots of people cancelling Oatly. But Oatly, the fact that a brand like Oatly is attracting investment from ultra-conservative, ultra-traditional investors is a really important sign that this is going mainstream. The money now is going after brands that can show they're doing the right thing in terms of ESG. And as a small business, that matters, because at some point, if you want to scale, being able to talk a good game on ESG is vital. As a growing business, as a large business, you need to know what your impact is in these areas in order to succeed. And getting it right from the start just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And the last thing is the thinking. And what I was really heartened by this year is that for years, the conversation around purpose has been, what is purpose and why does it matter? And do we need it? The conversation this year flipped for the first time, where there was probably an equal number of articles saying, how do we authentically live this thing of purpose, rather than just what is purpose? And that shows that this is tipping over into an actual business practice. And I think that's one of the things that the John Lewis example shows us. Now, my prediction for 2021 is that businesses that get on top of this are going to be the ones that are more likely to succeed, and that this decade is, in the same way that you could characterize the last decade as the decade of the customer, I think this decade is going to be the decade of purpose, and organizations that understand it and can enhance their business using it are going to be the ones that really make the difference.
I completely agree with that last point in particular, James. When we went into lockdown back in, was it 21st, 22nd of March, something like that, date ingrained almost in my mind. I was talking to many business owners in those last few weeks of March, first weeks of April, who were really, for the first time, for some of them in years, were taking a step off the treadmill and thinking, what am I doing? What is the purpose of my business? What bits, do I carry the business on? Where does the business go from here? And whilst it was perhaps a year where, certainly those few months were quite daunting and quite challenging for many people, it's really given them a new sense of purpose, or given them an opportunity to reevaluate their purpose for the first time. And think about, why did I get on the treadmill in the first place? Where's this? Where am I running to? What am I going to do? And how can I do it now that the world around us has changed? And I think also having that government funding, government support, gave people the opportunity in the breathing space to think about where am I going with this, and what do I want to do with it long term. So absolutely. I absolutely agree. I think it's been quite a unique opportunity for every single business owner. The question I always used to get, or the response I always used to get when I call business owners up to talk to them about coaching was I haven't got enough time. And that lockdown really did give, not every industry, but many industries an opportunity, many business owners an opportunity to think, well, what am I doing? How am I doing it? And how do I go forwards? What is my purpose? So that thinking space.
And a lot of brands, how they behaved in the early days of the lockdown, and how they dealt with furlough, and how they treated their team members during furlough, and how they work remotely now, tells you an awful lot, I think, about those organizations. And it's been a year that's been instructive for a lot of organizations, but also potentially this gives you this opportunity to transform. And I think that's what kind of the John Lewis partnership example tells us, and it's one of the lessons from that. So if it's okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about John Lewis partnership now before I take any questions. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, Steve? Great. Yeah.
So you may or may not have seen Sharon White, the chairman of John Lewis Partnership, announced earlier in the year that they were working on refreshing their purpose statement and refreshing what the idea of John Lewis Partnership was as a business. And last month, they announced that their new purpose statement was, "We are a partnership for positive change, improving lives and building a more sustainable future." So that is the guiding principle behind John Lewis Partnership, i.e. John Lewis and Partners and Waitrose and Partners existence for the next 20, 30, 50 years. And underneath this purpose statement, they made 10 headline commitments that they were going to make in order to demonstrate that they were getting towards this. And some of these were quite stretching, some of them were quite interesting, some of them were quite boring. But these commitments included things like, we are going to be net carbon zero by 2035 as a business. By 2025, John Lewis Partners Partnership has said they are going to have a buyback or take back scheme for every product line in their stores. So much the same way that IKEA now will buy back your wardrobe from you after 2 years if you take it back. John Lewis have committed to doing that in all of their product lines by 2025 in order to help promote a circular economy. And they've set a target of halving their customers' food waste by 2030 underneath this. So there are some real chunky, specific goals underneath this to show that they mean business. And the reason that they're doing it is because, and I'm quoting from one of their leaders here. They see relevance, differentiation, and innovation as being key to surviving in today's retail market. They don't think that organizations that just do what they've always done are going to survive, let alone flourish. And while they talked a good talk around their purpose and their heritage, they didn't really feel like they were seeing any benefits of innovation or different thinking that they needed. So they went back to the drawing board and said, okay, what is it that this business is about? And they came up with being a partnership for positive change, improving lives and building a more sustainable future. Now, I don't know about you, that is an organization which I feel like I would like to work for, and in which I could contribute new ideas to try and benefit society. And it's an organization that I would want to shop at as well. I think if your business can have a similar statement, then it can make a huge difference. And I'm going to go on to 6 specific lessons from how John Lewis and Partners have done this, and what it means. But before I do that, Steve, I don't know if you wanted to comment or ask any questions on this piece.
No, I'm just thinking I would love to. I'm not brave enough, but to walk into a John Lewis and just ask if any of the members of staff behind the till, do they know what their purpose statement is? Because I think that's really important, isn't it? The bigger the organization, the harder it is to, but it is so important to make sure that if you have such a clear, bold statement like that, that in any organization that filters out down to every single level, and everybody knows. Absolutely. Of course, I'm not going to walk into John Lewis tomorrow. We're in tier 3, so I can't. But my point is that if you are, the bigger the organization, but any organization, it's really important that everybody knows, lives, and breathes that very purpose across the organization.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I mean, these are the 6 things that I think we can learn from this, and I dare say that there are more that will occur over time. But purpose is an opportunity, number 1. Number 2, your origin story is really important, and you need to articulate it and use it. Number 3, authenticity is key, and I think we'll talk about that point there, Steve. Number 4, purpose isn't the why, or at least isn't just the why. Number 5, storytelling is important. And number 6, it's not just about you, it's about your partnerships. Now, the first one here is Dame Sharon White and the senior team at John Lewis Partnership are very clear. They see purpose as an opportunity for their business. And I think if John Lewis is saying this is an opportunity for us because it's going to enable us to do certain things, I think that's a lesson for all of us. I think it can be an opportunity for all of us. So they recognize that we're in a trust economy now, and they want to build trust. And they have a secret weapon in building that trust, which is that they're owned by their team members. But only 40% of their customers know that that is the case. So they see realigning and publicizing this purpose as an opportunity to build trust quickly amongst their customers, particularly amongst those who don't already realize kind of why it's a special organization. Secondly, they don't talk about millennials. Actually, they talk about Generation Z, which is the generation after millennials. They talk about a takeover. So all of the things that the millennials said about not wanting to work for or shop at organizations that don't match their values, Generation Z say more so. And they believe as boomers and Generation X move out of the workforce and Generation Z and the millennials become the mainstream, their intentions are going to be reflected in reality. And so they see this as positioning themselves now for what the world is going to look like in 10, 15 years' time. And more importantly,
just to clarify for anybody who's a bit confused there, James. So millennials, we all, I think, can relate to, those born in and around the millennium. But Generation Z, where does that come in terms of the timeline? That comes after.
That's directly afterwards. Yeah. So I can't remember what the last date a millennial could be born was, and clearly using a broad brush to talk about an entire group of people just because of the year they were born is nonsense. But people that are kind of turning 18 about now are called Generation Z, and they are like the millennial group in terms of they're perceived as being entitled, perceived as wanting everything instantly, perceived as really caring about the environment and making a stand about it and calling each other out. Everything that you thought was true of millennials is true more so of this next generation that's coming.
And before millennials, it was Generation X, is right, if I'm not mistaken, is that right?
It was Y before.
Y.
Oh, was it? No, yeah, it was Gen X before them. To be honest,
I'm
going to get out of my depth, and I don't want to say something that's obviously wrong. But I know that Generation Z is the latest that's entering the workforce now. And what was interesting was that John Lewis Partnership did some research that showed that actually it's not just the fact that they are going to be in charge in 10 years that's going to make the difference, but actually they have a greater impact on their parents today than any previous generation. My parents would not have changed their buying or consumption behavior because of my opinion particularly, but parents who have 16-year-olds today get bullied into changing their shopping habits because of what their teenagers think. They are creating an opportunity for radical change, and John Lewis recognizes that it wants to be positioned to be part of that. Secondly,
we'll see John Lewis on TikTok shortly.
Or whatever's next. Yeah, I mean,
that's it, isn't it? Next.
I certainly don't. They have started talking a lot more about their origin story, and I think that's instructive for all of us and something that every business owner can learn from. So Stephen Lewis, who was John Lewis's son, fell off a horse and had a serious injury when he was young and spent 2 years convalescing. During this period, he did serious reflection, like your business owners on furlough, Steve. And he came to the conclusion that it was morally wrong for his family to take more money out of that haberdashery business than was paid to all of the employees in total. And when his dad died and he took over the business, he put his thoughts into action, and it required an act of parliament to do so. But Stephen Lewis handed over ownership of his organization to his employees because he thought that was morally the right thing to do. He made a decision to not sack women when they got married and make them go and be housekeepers. They're the first organization in the UK, they claim, to keep women on after marriage, and they were the first organization in the UK to introduce maternity leave, and so on. And the story that they are building around this, which I think is got is hugely true and has always been there, but they're really bringing to the fore now, is the sense that John Lewis has always been a radical experiment in a better way of doing business. And we are bringing that forward into the 21st century by updating this purpose. We are the world's oldest triple bottom line organization, was the phrase that they used in the presentation I saw recently. And what this shows us is, against, let's say we think about Waitrose versus Asda. If Asda were to say today, although they come from kind of Walmart and Sam's Club and doing the right thing for customers and doing everything you can to make goods good value for customers, they don't have that same story of this is all about making the world a better place that Waitrose have and can leverage. And that's why it's really important for you as a business owner, a year down the line, when you're hiring your 5th person or your 1st person or your 100th person, you're able to say, I started this business because when I grew up, we weren't wealthy and my mum really struggled to budget. And I thought it was really unfair that my mum didn't get access to good value financial advice and run the household effectively because she couldn't afford to, because she was living hand to mouth. So I have started this business to help make sure that people are financially literate. Being able to tell that story rather than I worked for a bank and saw that there was a gap in the market, and if I developed the right software, I'll be able to sell a load of credit cards or a load of loans. Like, it's a completely different story from an emotional point of view. It positions you effectively. It engages you. It engages your team. Knowing that origin story and be able to express it, the difference that you're making in the world from running your business, is such an important foundation. I think we just need to run ahead and grab it.
And the word that comes to my mind as you're saying that, James, is all about credibility.
Yeah.
Credibility in the marketplace. Whatever industry you're in, having a real. We've talked in previous sessions, haven't we, about a clear purpose, clear understanding of why you're trying to do what you're doing, but and having the story that sits behind that, and it's so important. The origin, as you say, the origin story.
Absolutely. And then to build on that point, authenticity is key. So if you did go into a John Lewis store tomorrow, if you were in the right tier and it was open, I think there is a good chance that actually a partner would know this purpose, not just because of the communication that's gone around it, but because 10,000 of them were involved in defining this purpose. So they've got 80,000 partners, I think, around the UK. 10,000 of them were involved in this project to define that purpose statement that I showed you on the previous slide about being a partnership for positive change. 3,000 suppliers and NGOs were involved in defining that purpose. Like, they really went to town in order to define it. And I think that is the next lesson for a business owner, is if there are even 2 of you in the business, both of you need to have a say in articulating that purpose statement, because both of you live that business authentically, and neither of you sees the whole picture. You have to work together to define it. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full picture. It has to be co-created and it has to be real.
Again, the phrase that I use in my webinars and workshops and comes to mind is do with, not do to. And that's it. Going back to the John Lewis example, if they do redefine their purpose with their partners, with all their staff, absolutely. If they were to do it too, then how many people are going to remember that? And we also talk about points of culture in many of our workshops, and having a limited number. If you have 15, 20 points of culture, who's going to remember them all? But having 4 or 5 clear sort of sentence or sentiments about your purpose, about your vision, is so important. And any more than that, I really feel, James, that people will start to forget and not be able to recite and understand each one of them. But having them Absolutely. There in place as a foundation stone of any business is so important.
Yeah, and I think if I jump ahead to the storytelling point, telling stories around those just reinforces them. So John Lewis partnership is jumping on the Stephen Lewis Foundation story because it backs up what they're saying. You can use that purpose then to find examples of things doing things right. I worked with a commercial vehicle retailer who the MD arrived at a depot to negotiate a deal and saw somebody standing in the car park in one of his customers' uniforms. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Went and talked to the guy. He was waiting for a taxi back to head office. So this managing director postponed his meeting for 20 minutes, said, cancel your taxi, get in the car, drove him back to head office, chatted to him on the way. Like, that kind of story, repeating that tells all of his staff, like, we put our customers' needs over our own. We go out of our way to help our customers. We do everything we can to understand our customers and their needs. You know, knowing how that aligns with your purpose enables you to identify the important points of that story and then elevate it. And John Lewis have talked about, you know, using this purpose and these commitments as the source for future stories that they're going to tell within the business, and repeating that, finding them and repeating them is absolutely kind of how you back up those simple 4 or 5 key points.
There's a couple of comments from Pam, James, just to reiterate what we're saying. Really, you know, she's always telling her clients, you know, tell their story. It's a great way to engage and market the business, which I'm sure is what John Lewis are doing here as well. But also, she chooses to shop with businesses and organisations that mean something to her personally. There's that real connection, understanding the purpose and the story that sits behind. You know, will increase the traffic and will increase your you know, your customer base, I'm sure. And those that really are shopping or connecting with you, buying from you for whatever, whether it's, you know, products or service, because they really believe in what you're doing.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Now, I mean, in terms of, I think I've covered the purpose isn't the why point previously. Basically, purpose is a whole management approach. It's not just a set of words to go on a board. It's not a slogan. You have to invest what you believe about why your business exists in all of the things I showed you earlier and drive that congruence. It's just a really good reminder here that purpose isn't just why your business exists. It also then informs how you do business, who with, and what you sell them. And then lastly, I think this goes back to your point, Stephen, in terms of communities and building networks. John Lewis Christmas ad this year. You may have seen the kind of kindness or be kind Christmas ad.
Give it a little love, wasn't it? And you know, lovely bit where they brought different artists together.
Yeah, they are going to donate £4 million from that campaign to partners, various charity partners. So going back to the Marks and Spencer LGBT sandwich, they launched that in Pride 2 years ago, and they gave a £10,000 donation to charity in order to show their commitment to Pride. John Lewis this year are giving £4 million to charity to show their commitment to kindness. You can compare a token effort of £10,000 or like 0.0001% of revenue versus £4 million. I think you can see which business is acting more authentically.
I think when you put that into comparison to the bounce back loans earlier on in the year of 10,000 per business, you know, and for a multinational organisation such as M&S, 10,000 really is a drop in the ocean, isn't it?
Absolutely. But the key point here is, like, you are running your business. I'm running my purpose, discovery, definition, activation business. You're coaching businesses. You're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're an architect, whatever it is. You aren't suddenly best placed to say homelessness is a problem, I'm going to solve it. But by working in partnership with other organizations, you can make a huge difference. And Ben and Jerry's talked about this. John Lewis Partnership talk about this. It's about building a community and networking so that you're connected to the right people that you can work with. So Ben and Jerry's see their role to make great ice cream and sell ice cream that can then go to funding partners that are doing great work. And then Ben and Jerry's, because they've got the profile, can be activists on their behalf. Like Ben and Jerry's former CEO described them as, we're an activism company that happens to make great ice cream. John Lewis and Partners are going to be doing some wacky things, I think, over the next few years. They're investigating whether or not they can use disused store space to set up social housing schemes. Right? They're not going to do that on their own because they're not social housing experts, but they have been working for years to find the right partners to do it. So as a business owner, you'll be meeting lots of people that do interesting things that you're committed to and that can help show what your value is. And by partnering with them and supporting them, even in small ways to begin with, you can plant the seeds of something that's going to be very compelling and very important later on. And it's about, you know, if you are a recruiter and you're interested in people having better recruitment experiences and more people having good jobs, how can you help a recruitment charity for the types of roles that don't have recruitment consultants working on them? How can you train basic workplace skills to people. There's a partner who might be able to help you with that, who you can form a decent relationship with, and it just makes us, I mean, this is where I get a bit polemical, but it just helps society. Like, everyone benefits. You benefit because you feel better about your work, your team gets more motivated, so they make you more money. The charity benefits, or your partner benefits because they've got more support, and your brain is going to be useful to them as much as your money. And then society benefits because the partner helps those people, and it's just circular. So partnerships are absolutely key, and it's something that I think John Lewis have put a lot of focus on in their Christmas ad, and it's going to be an important part of their of how they prove their purpose to the nation over the next 10 years. And I think if you as a business owner can see purpose as an opportunity and can articulate it in a way that inspires people with a great origin story, and then live it authentically and run your business in line with it. And I'm not saying give away all your money, I'm not saying be a social enterprise, but I'm saying bear your purpose in mind when you're making decisions. You can transform your business and you can transform society. And that's why I'm excited about the 20s. That's why I think 2020 has been a turning point year for purpose, in amongst all of the challenges that we've all faced. People are beginning to get it. And if you as a business owner would like to discuss it, then please do just give me a shout.
Thank you, James. Yes, and we certainly at the beginning of lockdown number one, started talking to business owners about the year, or the opportunity ahead. And I do think it is absolutely a year of opportunity. It has been a year of opportunity. It's been a challenging year, don't get me wrong. And particularly for the hospitality trade and the retail industry. I've got colleagues and friends who work in both, and particularly for the smaller organisations. I was talking the other day. There's the number of companies we can probably count on both hands. Who've sadly no longer with us, even in the last few weeks. So it hasn't been a year without challenges, but equally it has been a year with opportunity, particularly I think for SME, for small, the smaller the organization, the easier it is to be nimble and to change and to reflect. I absolutely would encourage people, if you're still thinking about what is your purpose, why are you wanting to continue doing what you're doing, and drive your business forwards, to reconnect with your purpose, to have that vision. And James, you've seen some of our coaching, we've talked about it in the past. One of the foundation stones we talk about at Action Coach is, we start off with every single client is about destination. That is your area of specialism. So I would never try. Oh, goes my watch. I would never try and my watch doesn't understand me. But I'd never try and sort of articulate it in a way you have much greater depth of knowledge. But it is so important, whether you talk to James, whether you talk to somebody else, about understanding what it is, what your purpose is and what your vision is in your business. Those things, as you said, James, need to be the fundamental foundation stone in any business to be able to flow through then to your, when you're building your team, when you're building your marketing strategy, these things need to flow through, and you need to be congruent in everything that you're doing.
Yeah. And let me be clear. Like, I'd love to speak to you, but speak to Stephen about it. Like, it's more important that you get in touch with this purpose than you talk to me. This is about us building a better society together and stronger businesses together. So the purpose of this presentation is to say, purpose is an opportunity for you. John Lewis can give us some lessons on how to do it well. Let's do it.
Absolutely. As with all our lunch and learn guests, James, we've had Claire, who's an HR expert. We've had Tosin, who's a video expert. We are, as Action Coach, it's part of the community. It's part of building that community with various, experts and colleagues who work in partnership with. And yes, we talk about destination, we talk a bit about purpose, but absolutely you are the expert. And it's about working together and referring backwards and forwards. And it doesn't matter whether you talk to me or talk to you. It's about having that conversation, I think, to begin with any business owner, about what is your purpose, and what are your vision and what are your goals going forwards. But there are some great lessons from everything you've shared with us today. I'm just going to check in with Pam just to see if there's any questions. I know Pam's been monitoring social media. I think she has some of the comments that she's put in. Now, actually not hers, but from other people. I just want to check with Pam, see if there's anything else that's coming while we've been talking. But it's been great having the hour together. Pam, is there anything else that's coming on the social media channels this lunchtime? No, she's still on mute, so I'm sure she'll message in if there is. In terms of next steps, James, if people want to have that conversation, people, people can obviously go back and read the books. We could all pick up a book, whether it's Simon Sinek or something else. We can do our research online. But is it just a question of reflecting? Is there something else we need to do? What else do we need to do in terms of thinking about our purpose? We've all got this time over Christmas to sit and reflect on the year that's gone by. It's often a time when people think about the year and think about what's coming up ahead. Any sort of real tips, James, in terms of reflecting?
Yeah, I mean, the book to buy and read is Find Your Why by Simon Sinek and his team, because it has exercises in there that you can go through in order to try and define your purpose. Like the question the thing I will reflect on over Christmas is, if I closed my business and didn't reopen in January, what would the world miss, and why would somebody need to restart this business? Because if I can get a really clear sense of that, then that shows me the direction that I need to be going in. And there are other organizations out there who help define purpose and help organizations enact it. I dare say lots of them do it better than me, but I think that when I go out networking, I still meet people who haven't read Start with Why. They don't have a purpose for their business, and they're doing a great job running their teams, but we could just do a bit better. And that's what's going to keep me going in 2021, this idea that there are still people to help. So yeah, that's the advice. Read Find Your Why, but ask yourself, okay, yeah, what if this closed? Who would lament it, and why do I need to keep it going?
No, absolutely great advice, James. And I'd also challenge anybody who feels they've got a really clear purpose. Are you being congruent? Is that saying that your customers, your clients, comes through in your marketing, your recruitment policies and procedures? Is that something that flows through every aspect of your business? We talked about authenticity earlier on. I think it's something else to challenge ourselves over. But I do think 2021 is going to be an exciting year in many ways. I don't doubt there's still going to be some challenges. I suspect Tier 3 is going to carry on into January for many of us. But there is opportunity in all of that, and I think it's about having that positive mindset and thinking, what are the opportunities and how can I take my business forwards amongst all the challenges we're facing and have faced over the last 12 months. James, Pam just said there's no other questions, so it's been great having this time. We're actually bang on time actually, because it's 12:57, so timing has worked out really well. We've been having a bit of throwing comments in as we've been going along, so really do appreciate you coming along, as you say, for the third time in 2020 to talk to us about purpose. I really do hope our listeners you've enjoyed today's session with James and myself. Do go back. I would recommend going back, and we'll make sure the link is on our social media sites and on our website to go back to the previous videos that James and I have done together. And really take this opportunity now as businesses, as we all start to quieten down potentially, and certainly over the Christmas period and going into New Year, to think about what is our purpose, and to reflect on some of what we've said today. Particularly as you watch a John Lewis advert next, or maybe as you walk into their store or any other store, think about what is the purpose and how you're connecting with this organization. It's a great lesson to learn. And what I do love about that advert actually, James, is I think they did a great support for the arts industry, recognizing that it's perhaps been on its knees this year. Have brought together artists from different sectors and brought them together to make the advert, which again just reflects the organization that they are.
Great. Thank you very much for having me again, Stephen.
It's been a
pleasure, and yeah, look forward to talking again.
Have a great Christmas and New Year, and we'll look forward to catching up and booking or arranging another session with you in January, February. James, that'd be great.
Fantastic.
All right, but for now, to our listeners, thank you for taking time to listen to us, and we look forward to catching up with you on Monday when we have Ruth Dunn talking all about mindset, so getting into the right mindset for taking on the new year. So that'll be an exciting session, 12 o'clock on Monday, and then next Thursday we have a bit of a review of the year as our last lunch and learn this side of Christmas. But for now, James, to all our listeners, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll catch up very soon. Take care.
Thank you.